Guys, you caught me already in the middle of this great conversation right now. Now, please say hello, introduce yourselves to the Lino and D Live community. We are live right now with 5 million monthly active users.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. My name is Jim Dolbear, and I'm the president of, we have 2 software projects. One's called Elixxir. We have a group outside Los Angeles doing a privacy protection platform based on mixed network that David Chaum invented. And then we have a separate sister project called Praxis that's a team in Cayman Islands that's developing a consensus and digital currency solution. And the information is at elixxir.io and praxis.io. And then we have a group, a community that's tracking us, and we're just announced a coin literally yesterday and today called XX Coin, and we're going to be distributing that to the community. The community is at xxcollective.io.
Okay, so how are we utilizing the XX Coin? Let's jump right into it.
Yeah, so basically, you know, the coin is a sort of a traditional coin within the blockchain space. It's used to, or will be used to compensate, incentivize the node community, and we're going to end up with thousands of nodes.
Okay.
It is the way that the community members can participate financially. Mm-hmm. It's used in some of the, a little bit in consensus.
Okay.
And it also is a standalone digital currency. It can be used for sort of store of value, and it also underpins all the payment functionality, so you can use it to pay for things.
Okay, so we have a lot happening right now.
Yeah.
Now, why?
So, I mean, the reason that we are doing all of this is that from our standpoint, payments and messaging and some information transfer is the things that you do in the highest volume sort of day in, day out. You get up in the morning, you start messaging, you pay for some things, you send your doctor's information. Those are the things that reveal who you are, and those are the things that create a data set where other like governments and corporations can track and profile you. So what we've done is we're trying to create a platform where you can do those things without revealing that metadata, they call it.
So how I'm just thinking of how are we dealing with KYC?
So KYC is sort of a separate issue in the sense that for messaging and for payments, you think about right now, you don't KYC. You KYC when you come in and out of the financial system, and particularly with large dollar amounts. Okay. So like if you go to a bank, you know, and you move $10,000, you have it's not KYC, but it's like that. Right. If you want to establish accounts, trading accounts, or own financial assets, then there's a KYC AML. Okay. So when people are buying, you know, the coins, we have to deal with that. But when people are doing payments, it's not an issue.
Really?
Not for, you know, normal payments and a kind of day in, day out, not particularly large dollar amounts. It's like that right now in the real world. Right?
I was just going to ask you, is there a threshold that KYC and you can overcome that whole challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it is today, which is the threshold is $10,000. Right. So if you go to the bank, if you go, sometimes you run into that. If you go to the bank, you won't, you know, you can move money to ATMs. None of that is really tracked. But if you hit the $10,000 threshold, there's a legal requirement to, and the United States is the most aggressive about that. It's you know, there's something called FinCEN, which I think people know, and it's been tracked more heavily since 9/11. So it's part of what they're trying to do to understand, you know, money flows that may be associated with kind of bad actors.
Will the powers that be consider this a constructed platform where deviant behavior could thrive?
You know, I was talking to 2 senior people at the FBI, and they said, they basically said 75% of USD, US dollar cash, is outside the United States, and 25% of it, they don't know where it is. So there's huge amounts of US cash, and that's what the easiest way to move large amounts of money. Okay. And Bitcoin is used a little bit like that. We don't anticipate that being a real issue because we're not really in the big money movement business.
Right. These are smaller transactions.
Yeah.
Where do you see limiting the dollar amount?
You know, it's our intent to just comply with So 10,000 is the current cutoff. So.
And where do you see the most adoption over the next 6 months geographically?
Yeah, it depends from a sort of consumer standpoint where it is that you're having problems making payments or where you're really concerned about your privacy. So it's funny, we used to think it wasn't the United States, that it wasn't the target market, but with what's been going on recently with all the profiling that's, the election manipulation stuff is kind of interesting.
Right.
That's the problem. It's when people who are in power and government actors or corporate actors start to profile you and track who you are.
Right.
If you start being concerned about that, then this is something that can be really, really helpful.
Well, historically, they have.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So it's not just with digital. This was happening in the '60s. This was happening they were profiling a long time ago.
Yeah, and I think you're completely right. Like, it's what's old is new again, right? It's not like any of this, bad actors moving money around, profiling people.
Right.
This has been done, and it's a sort of the dark side of human nature.
Right.
The issue is that on the network, it's easier to profile people more cheaply and at scale. So,
so let's talk about
the Russians.
Forget about the dark side. Let's talk about the light side now, right? The light side and what you're bringing to. Tell me how that's going to transform the lives of the core consumer.
Well, so one way to tell the story about the network, the internet, is that this last phase, and sometimes people call it Web 2.0,
right?
And it's largely about social media, is that the uses that grew so quickly were these sort of like somewhat lightweight, kind of public uses of the network.
Okay, right.
And that's because that's what the network was sort of good for, and that's where all the money went. And so you get these, companies like Facebook that created a huge value to people, but some of it was really more of a scrapbooking, keeping track of your grandchildren, than sort of like dealing with medical problems or so. I mean, I think what the issue is are we in a place now where if we provide the right security and privacy features, that things like serious medical problems or mental illness or can be dealt with online, and the network can be brought to bear for sort of like serious work. That's sort of the job ahead of us is to bring the network and the digital world and the power of that to bear on those issues.
The medical world will, looking at a lot of research they've pulled in the United States, and certain demographics have been underserved, right, and overlooked,
right,
and with challenges that affect everyone,
right,
and basically having that access of information without that key identifier may get us to a lot of solutions.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like, if you're having problems with mental illness or something,
right,
it's not, let me put it this way. This makes the point. There are people who are struggling with some form of mental illness, and they have an Instagram right now that shows them smiling and happy. The Instagram thing is working for them.
Go get help,
but
people. Seriously.
So
that's not
that's
a joke.
The issue is that the other piece of it isn't the network isn't helping them. There's no ways to go for that.
That is
because
really
they're concerned about the privacy issues.
Absolutely. They don't want it, and you see it just, as we talk about transformational, our 101 language, right? Just our basic communication. You see a lot more folks that are idols.
Right.
Athletes, speaking about it more now.
Yeah, that's been an incredible thing.
It really has been incredible.
I mean, it's one of these things like the NBA and basketball players in particular, because the NBA, sort of because of the culture of the players and there's been a lot of that coming out.
From one moment, some come from nothing, and then have it all.
But I started talking about, depression, and it's pretty amazing.
It is. And glad more of us have to, to open up.
It actually started, the first time that we really talked about it was Eunice Kennedy. If you look back, there was mental illness in the Kennedy family, and Eunice Kennedy in particular, who was Bobby's sister, she pressed hard and was a real advocate, and that's where the first toehold for like getting help and was in the United States. It's interesting stuff. Prior to that, no one talked about anything.
So we talk about med tech.
It's like step,
This is fascinating, and by the way, I'm so glad we just had this moment in this conversation to really think and something that people go day in and day out, especially dealing with entrepreneurs and CEOs and innovators that have a tremendous amount of stress and responsibility when you're dealing with a full community and the weight of that community on you.
They can't say anything.
Your strength is, your success and your strength are almost tied in.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't like show a small, kind of chink in the armor or whatever.
Wow. Or the cancel culture will appear.
That's exactly.
That's pretty interesting. So to think about this as a benefit and to overcome a challenge like this is monumental.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think also like the other piece of it is sometimes people they talk about like Web 3.0 or the Internet of Value. Those are sort of the network name for kind of blockchain type implementation. And the idea there is that because the internet isn't secure and private, you wouldn't trust it with anything that's important or valuable, because people will steal it, hack it. So that makes the point too, right? We need a place, an internet, that can support value exchange and things that are important.
So your offering is an offering standalone for the company, but it's also a white label solution for other messaging apps?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's in the blockchain ethos in the sense that what we've done and are doing is creating a platform, sort of like Ethereum.
Right.
It's a platform that provides really a network that has these privacy and security features, and then people can access it with dApps.
Right.
And what we just did, and we released it last week, was a reference implementation, which is called the XX Messenger, which you can get at xxcollective.io if you're interested. But we're releasing it, to hundreds of people at a time. And what we did is we created a messenger to show how our platform could be used.
Smart.
But it's a reference because we intend that it will be decentralized when we go mainnet, and the platform will be available for all sorts of uses. We've just come out with a software development kit called Arrow SDK. And like, for example, we got an inquiry from a battered women's shelter, and that they want to create a suite so that if people have issues, they can come on and have complete privacy because they're under fire, stalking and stuff.
Absolutely.
And we were like, whoa, that never occurred to us. So there's uses and application cases that we hope will come.
And now my next question was, where do you see pushing your efforts in the world of giving back, in the world of doing good, and a byproduct already in a conversation, right?
I mean, to some extent, this is, I don't mean to duck the specifics, but here's a high level thing, which is that, Facebook, for example, has like, I think $1 trillion market capitalization or something. And, one of the things that really has irritated a fair number of people and led to legislation in California, which is that they're making money off of your stuff. So like, all that money is from the fact that they kind of stole your data, right? And this is part of the blockchain ethos, and people get irritated about that. Well, I mean, what we're trying to do is sort of say, hey, well, that stuff isn't going to be taken from you. So all that money goes back to the people, right? And we can't exploit it. And it shouldn't, that value, that wealth creation shouldn't go to this private corporation. It should be effectively collapsed and sent back out into the world.
Absolutely.
So, it's our hope that we can displace some of these players that have exploited stuff that they really shouldn't have.
That's interesting.
Yeah, kind of reset the, rebalance the playing field or
after
something.
The financial crisis, there was a bigger gap.
Yeah.
The haves lost and got it right back.
Yeah, that's...
Yes, that happens, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, what happens is with that is that, the rich people have liquidity, they have cash, and so when things get bad, they buy apartment buildings at 10 cents on the dollar, and it's really perverse.
It's an interesting mindset, but what's happening here in the world of, I would say, just the blockchain world, right, is that more people are recognizing that difference, it doesn't, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, no, I think, that going back to the whole network effect, and Mark Zuckerberg and, the people who run Facebook and got in early and they didn't understand really completely how this would all play out.
Right.
It's because of the network effect, because of the virality, and that it's in the value Metcalfe's theorem. There's a theorem about the value of networks growing exponentially,
Right.
and that stuff was really kind of understood at first cut in the '60s. That like there is this weird arithmetic thing, which is if the network gets bigger, it increases exponentially in value. So that's what happened. No one really, like 30 years ago, no one saw this coming, but so these networks just made certain people really wealthy, and it doesn't make any sense from a sort of moral standpoint at all.
From a moral global standpoint of where we're at right now,
it's just a weird,
right.
It's a network effect. Yeah, so a big part of the blockchain ethos is to put the value of the network back in the hands of the people. I mean, that's really what decentralization, that's one way of saying, people are like, what does decentralization means?
Right.
Well, it means that the network the value of the network should be distributed generally, which is to say, some central person shouldn't own and be really wealthy just because there's a network effect.
Absolutely.
As simple as that, yeah.
And on that note, I want to ask you, if the community, right?
Yeah.
The community that you serve and the crypto community, one and the same, if you could ask them to do something for you, not just engage in your product, do something for you, for everything happening in our world of blockchain, what would you ask them?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, we have a couple of communities in a weird kind of way. So, like the blockchain community really started with like back-end serious people, back-end developers. Right. And, one of the issues has been that there isn't the UI front-end people in the community going back, So
I had this conversation earlier.
Yeah, it's just the way it went down. Yep. So, that's part of the community. And then we have privacy. We have people who are in the privacy community who, blockchain is not really their lead, it's really privacy.
Right.
And then what we're really trying to do is address kind of the consumer community, the people who are really busy but realize these are issues. That's why we went to such great lengths to implement on a smartphone, and that's why our consensus mechanism out of Praxis closes in one round, so we can get to finality, in 10 seconds, and that's why we can support messaging, because we wanted to be able to, real people who get up in the morning and work and use these things to be able to access this stuff with the smartphone. So what we're trying to do is like put our stuff out there, and we want people to kind of evaluate and see that it works, and then get the word out if they like it. So it's a classic community thing, and we're trying hard to. This is the case with the XX Messenger, and we also have we have publicly released real-time network information. We call it the network dashboard. So put that stuff out there so people can take a look and see it, see that it's working, and if they like it, use it, support it. That's pretty much
Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for tuning in right now. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.